Hey there, I'm composer Caleb, and welcome back to my studio. Today is a special day. It marks the release of my first song in my upcoming vinyl album project for Greydient, my neoclassical electronic music project. And the song is called Larus Occasus. There's something special about watching a flock of gulls silhouetted against a golden orange sunset. This moment happened to me just a few weeks ago as I was driving home from work, and I was crossing over a bridge that was just outside of downtown Cleveland, looking over to Lake Erie, and there was hundreds of gulls, probably 1,000, that were set against this beautiful dark orange sunset. It was a natural yet surreal moment, and it lingered in my mind for a while afterwards. It was one of those moments that I definitely took a mental picture of, and I knew that it was something that I would want to paint later. That moment of inspiration actually made me think of a piece by Nils Frahm, my favorite neoclassical composer. It's from this album, Music for Animals. It's a song on the B side called Seagull Scene. It's a 13-minute ambient song. It's fantastically beautiful and very simple, deceptively simple, I'll say. And sometime I'd like to make a video talking about the deceptively simple nature of ambient songs, but I'll save that for another time. But what this made me think of when I thought of Nils and his recent album Music for Animals was this principle that often you'll see in art, and that is artists imitating other artists, or even creating derivative or copy works. And I heard one time that famous painters would often do this as their understudies would come along, and they would sometimes try to make a clone as accurate as they could against a master's painting. And I always thought that was an interesting concept, and how sometimes you would have to get these famous paintings authenticated to know whether this was their students' paintings or whether this was the master's paintings. And I think about that in music sometimes, and not so much that I want to make a cover song of Nils Frahm, even though that could be fun, but I kind of look up to him as a master in the art form of neoclassical and ambient music. And so whether it's just through ingesting a lot of his music and letting that stir with my own ideas and that inspiring the way that I approach instruments, or it's something a little more intentional, like thinking about one of the ideas that he might have thought of with seagull scene and my own seagull scene. And so you might be wondering, what does Larus Occasus mean? Well, it's kind of a made-up Latin word that I came up with, taking the Latin word for seagull and the Latin word for sunset and kind of mashing them together in my own remix, much like the way of artists taking derivatives from other words and making it something their own. So even with the title, I tried to use some of that derivative thinking. And so one of the big parts of this new vinyl album project that I'm working on this year is making an accompanying visual art piece for each song. And so for this one, I made this watercolor painting. And I tried to capture the hue of orange in the sunset and to just cast all the seagulls as silhouetted shadows, which kind of ties into my overarching theme of shadow for this album. And I wanted to tie in the motion. That's why I blurred some of the lines and blurred some of the gulls together. I guess the other thing to show is I started off on the other side of my sketchbook, just drawing some light sketches of gulls. I've been really practicing this last year with my pencil sketching, and it's tricky. It's hard to get the proportions right sometimes, but the more you do the repetition of things, the closer you seem to get with the accurate proportions. So some of these are misses and some of them are closer. And then at the bottom, I just tried working on my shapes for the silhouettes before I committed them over here. But I thought it would be interesting to even work on some of the details just so I could mentally place them in my mind, even though I knew that it was going to end up as silhouetted. And so I'd love to show you a couple of things that went through my mind when I was making it. I think it's only less than 8 tracks total in Logic, so I think it's a cool one to take a look at. Let's go check out the studio together. All right, let's take a look at the project file. So here we are, and you can see that there's only, looks like 5 tracks that make up this song. And the bed of it all starts off with this Juno track. and this was the Juno 106. So one of the things compositionally I did with this piece was letting the long release decay on the Juno sort of fall into the next chord. And it makes it sort of unclear where the last chord ended and the next chord begins. And I think that creates a really beautiful sort of timeless feeling where you're just sort of floating, you're just moving forward, but it's hard to find a real hard point of meter. There's no click track in this, so it's all just improvised and felt. And the Juno is got some processing on it. We have the UADX Analog Machines Essentials adding some saturation, channel EQ boosting up the lows significantly and also adding a little bit of crunch and clarity in the 2.5K range. And then we have Gullfoss, one of my secret favorite sweeteners, just taming some of the frequencies. And last but not least, my ultimate secret sauce, the Valhalla Supermassive, which is starting to become not so much a secret. Moving down then, we have two melody elements. We have the Mellotron Rhodes and the Coles, which is just my ribbon mics on the upright piano here. And so the Mellotron Rhodes sounds like this. Also, just wanted to point out a little bit more of how I made that seagull pitch bend effect. So I've got the Rhodes here running into the Electro Harmonics Mel 9 pedal, and that's what's giving us that choir sound. The other component is the EchoFix tape echo. And right here on the CV remote speed channel, I have that run to a foot pedal underneath the Rhodes so that when I play notes, as I bend my foot, it bends the note by slowing down the tape. The tape is actually physically slowing down on the spools when I do that. And then there's this one little melody that comes through with the upright piano. It's very simple, a little bit haunting. As you can see here, I had recorded a little bit with the Rhodes, but I chose to take it out here with automation just to let the piano be the only idea in the room. And it was really important to me to have just this one line, just this one sort of stanza, if you will, of the piano giving its perspective. And then the Rhodes comes back in, offering almost an answer to what the piano was asking. And here I'm using the Electro Harmonics Mel 9 pedal, a little bit of a blend, more Rhodes than Mellotron, but you can hear it starting to come in a little bit in the background here. And yeah, the ending, it was sort of this idea to have these gull wails that were sad and sort of almost crying like, and sort of using the tape echo pitch bend to take something like the Rhodes, which is a fixed note, and make it a bending note. It is an effect actually that I picked up from Nils and his Mellotron units that he has. Sometimes you'll use the tape speed to create note bends as well, but in the original real Mellotrons, they actually are tape on each key, and so he has a speed adjuster that is on the Mellotron that he can use to slow down notes and make them have pitch bends as well, which I think was a really haunting and cool technique. So I wanted to try to imitate that with what I had, and that I could use my tape echo for. All right, and then lastly, just looking at the mixing and mastering on this, it's very simple. We have some more Gullfoss. We're running into the Studer for some tape saturation and warmth. a little bit of the Pultec EQ here. Looks like I'm just touching up the low end a little bit. That's about it. And cutting a little bit of the mud in the 200s. And then when I'm running into the black box, so this is all the mixing and mastering I had on this song, just this chain. So the black box is kind of acting as the mastering agent, if you will. I'm using the mono maker to sort of tame the low ends into just the center channel, enhancing the stereo width a little bit here, and adding a bit of loudness and saturation as well. And lastly, just an adaptive limiter to keep everything in line. So like I said, this is the first track available for my 2025 Greydient album, which I hope to release as a 12-inch vinyl record at the end of this year. So be sure to subscribe to my channel to stay with the progress of the rest of the songs as they come. I'm hoping for maybe a song a month, but we'll see how it goes. This song is already available to listen to on your favorite streaming platform, but I also would encourage you to check it out on my Bandcamp. That's the place that you can support me the most directly. And also take a look at the music visualizer that I made using my OPZ synth. OPZ synth. I use this with some of its unique picture blending live performance capabilities, and I took some snapshots of my painting and I sketched them together in an ambient live performance video. I'll link that up here so you can check it out. Well, if you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a comment down below. I'd love to start a conversation with you. And I can't wait to share with you more behind the scenes of the upcoming songs. I'm really excited for some of the compositions that are coming your way soon. I hope you enjoy taking a few minutes out of your day to listen to this new song, Larus Occasus. Hopefully it'll bring you a sense of magic and calm as you think about your own inspirational sunsets that you've had in your life. All right, that's all for me. I'm Composer Caleb. Thanks for listening.